Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Charles P. Malone Podcasts. My name is Charles P. Malone, aka Chuck, and I will be your host for this book reading and commentary of my book, Winning Through Trial. Today's episode of Winning will cover Chapter 3, titled Attitude Begets Behavior, and will feature winning way number 3, Fake It Till You Make It, or the softer version, Behave Until You Believe. If you're unfamiliar with the term begets, it is a verb, it's an action word that means to cause or produce an effect on something. And in the case of this chapter, your attitude can have a positive or negative impact on your behavior. I loved this chapter even before I wrote it because of the impact changing my attitude had on my personal life, my business life, and spiritual life. I truly owe everything to God's hand in helping me learn how to change my attitude. I'm going to share some amazing concepts with you today that I pray will help change your life as they did mine. You are going to learn the value of acting in faith, a Christian term most of you should be familiar with, or go and do, another example of acting in faith, until you learn to believe. If this is your first time listening to this podcast and you haven't read or listened to Book 1, The Sweetness of Trial, you can listen for free to Sweetness by going to either Spotify or Apple Podcasts and search the title, The Sweetness of Trial. But for today's episode 6 of Winning, let's begin our reading of Chapter 3 on page 126. Attitude Begets Behavior. And of course, as I said, I love this chapter even before I wrote it because there's so much already written about attitude, which I have either read or experienced personally, and I couldn't wait to add my perspective. What is attitude anyway? Well, Cambridge Dictionary defines attitude as how you feel about someone or something. Now, that sounds simple, yes? Except that it isn't. If it's as simple as it sounds, why do leading experts in behavioral science tell us that attitude can determine success in life? See the Inc.com article, How to Upbeat Attitude Makes Success Simple. If attitude affects chances of success, then why isn't everyone successful? Of course, the other question is, what is success? And again, the Cambridge Dictionary comes to the rescue. Success is the achievement of desired results. Now, I really like that definition. It is straightforward and covers a wide range of applications. So how's this? Attitude triggers a feeling that drives the achievement of desired results. Attitude triggers a feeling which drives the achievement of desired results. Well, but if we're being honest, attitude can also sabotage the achievement of those desired results, right? So does the simple word attitude still sound simple to understand? Not really. So let's try to simplify. Attitude can either be positive or negative. Now we're getting somewhere. And if we take this one a step further, a positive attitude is essential to achieving success. Ha ha! Do you love it? Is a positive attitude also essential to winning through trial, you ask? You might be thinking, I thought this book was about trial. And yes, it is about trial. But you don't step into the ring to confront an opponent without being prepared, do you? Since we're on the subject of attitude, how does a person prepare for trial by preparing his attitude? Well, here's the answer. By not allowing yourself to think negatively. The natural reaction to trial in the ring of life is to think the worst and allow negative self-talk in without throwing a few positive self-talk punches in defense. I believe what is to follow as we proceed in chapter 3 will help equip you for the fiercest of trials, if that is what lies ahead. Now, being in a positive state of mind will not protect you from having trial in your life, but it will definitely help you approach your reaction to trial in a more controlled and productive way, helping to diffuse the stress associated with trial and learning to think more positively that this too shall pass. Now, with that bit of exercise accomplished, to help us better understand the type of attitude we should strive for in helping us succeed, I would like to share a few of my favorite attitude quotes, or as you know, I like to call them my attitude shorts. So here's one. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Now that's Sir Winston Churchill. Here's another. Being sexy is all about attitude, not body type. It's a state of mind. Amisha Patel said that. Here's another. Each day I come in with a positive attitude, trying to get better. Stefan Dregs. Here's one. Failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. Now that's my man, Og Mandino. I love his books. So here's another. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And that's Maya Angelou. And here's an English aphorism. Fake it till you make it. See, I didn't come up with that. Someone else did. So what do we learn from some of my favorite attitude shorts? Well, I hope you agree that the achievement of desired results is more often accomplished when we are in a positive state of mind. And this state of mind, or this state of being, is achieved by having a positive attitude. And if you don't mind a simpler definition of this, our attitude is the heavy machinery that builds the roadway to success in life, and the driver, operator, is Mr. Positive. And our attitude drives our actions. Remember, attitude begets behavior. And Mr. Positive follows the directions you give him. Since we have to play fair here, there is also another driver who occasionally tricks his way into the driver's seat when Mr. Positive is not feeling well or doesn't show up for work that morning. His name is, you guessed it, Mr. Negative. And boy, can Mr. Negative tear up a nice straight road. We're obviously having a little fun here, but can you see from this visual that either Mr. Positive or Mr. Negative can drive the heavy machinery? And so the decision you get to make is, who do you want to be the driver that day? And how do you want that roadway to success to look like? And how quickly do you want to arrive? So I chose Mr. Positive to be the driver, operator of my heavy machinery. Isn't this fun? I really like the direction this conversation is headed. Let's review. I am responsible for building a roadway to personal success, arriving at a happy place in life, right? I'm going to need some heavy machinery, there's the personal attitude, to build a roadway that leads to my destination. If left alone, this heavy machinery can wreak havoc with my roadway. So I bring a driver, operator, Mr. Positive attitude, to follow my directions in building the roadway. I won't get too complicated here, but let's say that my directions can include positive self-talk, positive affirmations, and even positive input from friends. Now, when I add spirituality to the octane that fuels the heavy machinery, mixed with goal setting and hard work, there isn't much that can keep me and you from building that roadway to success unless we let Mr. Negative drive. Now, hopefully this slight oversimplification opens your mind to how attitude, remember the heavy machinery, plays such a significant part in the achievement of success. What kind of desired results are possible with a positive state of mind, you ask? Well, how about celebrating success by bringing on board a new client at work because he likes how you always are upbeat and positive about getting things done? Or how about when you're thinking positive thoughts, you just seem happier? How about people like to be around you more when you are in a positive state of mind? Well, thinking positively opens more doors to success than the alternative state of mind. And we could go back to that Inc.com article that says if you have a generally upbeat attitude, you should at least achieve some level of success. And probably the opposite projection is also true. A negative attitude will most likely result in a level of success lower than hoped for, or none at all. So let's not forget the effect the positive attitude of mind has on the human body and mind. That's a door opener to a book all by itself. All right, Chuck, you say. Then just how does one get into that coveted state of mind called a positive attitude? Well, adopting a particular state of mind generally signals a change in one's nature. I believe to effect a change of nature, one needs to want to change so badly he will do the work to change it. It starts with desire, followed by a change in habits. More often than not, that desire is born out of trial. Minds are open to change, new habits are put into play, and lives are changed. One of the first habits required to effect a change of attitude is to feed it with proper self-talk. While the world is basically programmed with a negative slant toward local and national news, it becomes the duty and responsibility of each human being to determine what is allowed to be stored within, except that our mind is built like a sponge and generally accepts and stores everything fed into it. When trial strikes, it is usually without warning and often catches us in a vulnerable state of mind, unprepared on how to act or react. So we usually react by blaming ourselves or others. Feeding our mind with negative self-talk can get and set in motion feelings of low self-esteem, loss of self-confidence, affect our sleep, eating patterns, and even our love life. I find nothing good about allowing my mind to retain a negative self-talk. So I suggest you build within yourself a skill set, a method for countering those negative feelings when they first hit. Now this is going to be amazing and it's going to be a life changer. I love to start the day with positive input. So I spend time with my Heavenly Father, just giving thanks. And then when in the car heading to and from the gym, I try to immerse myself in uplifting messages intended to insulate me from the day's typical negative information blitz. And then I usually spend time on the treadmill, elliptical, and cycle machines during my exercise regimen, writing my next book. And over the course of the last 10 years, I have written 4 books and several published articles while accomplishing more than one goal. My regular self-talk is, if one paragraph is good, then 2 is better, but 1 is always better than none. See that, if you look at that a little deeper, we know our friend the Satan, and he's not our friend. But he loves it when we self-criticize ourselves, when we condemn ourselves, and when we see ourselves less than who we can become. By the time I'm showered and dressed for the day, my mind has been well fed on positive affirmations, hopefully serving to counter the negative of the day. Remember our goal of creating a positive state of mind? Choosing to start each day with a concerted focus on positive input will go a long way to initiate that positive mindset. When it becomes a habit, you will experience a new inner strength and confidence to help keep you on your feet when the next trial hits. If you truly want to adopt a positive attitude mindset and are willing to form new habits that will reflect your positive attitude, then you're going to need to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And here are a few ways I stay positive. Number one, learn to talk positively to yourself rather than listen to negative talk from yourself. Right? This sounds easier than it is, but it is generally the most essential change that needs to occur in your mind. It is indeed a change of nature, so treat it as such and be patient. Number two, hang around people who have a positive influence on others. This is another reminder that you will be the same in 5 years except for the influence received from the books you read, and include podcasts in there, and the people you associate with. So choose wisely. Surround yourself with people who are positive influencers. All right, number three, decide to lift others. Oh, I love this one. Many years ago, I read a book titled Balcony People, written by Joyce Heatherly. Folks, this book taught me how to remove myself from ground level self talk and move up to the balcony where I could be heard by lifting others in word and deed. However, during political election years, I wished I could remove myself to another planet during the months before Election Day. It has become the norm for all parties to elevate themselves by calling out the weaknesses of their opponents, rather than just focusing on what they can bring in the way of improvements. I try to counter this negative by finding occasions on social media when I can send a personal note to a friend going through hard times, or send an uplifting message to a friend citing a few of their admirable qualities. It literally makes my day. Number four, practice seeing the world, your city, your neighborhood, and your home as a wonderful place to live. Look for the good around you. So, how do you accomplish this when a neighbor's dog begins barking at 6 a.m. and doesn't stop till midnight the night before? You practice. Right. Number five, learn to laugh. Oh, I love this one. This shouldn't be too hard, right? Try it right now. Laugh. I mean, not so easy, right? So we have to practice. Now, what's that? You don't have anything to laugh about? Well, that's the point. Learning to laugh is a state of mind, not a reaction to watching an I Love Lucy episode, although that's fun. Since laughter is a psychological response, it can be learned. And if you learn to laugh, you can learn to react to trial without giving in to negative thinking. That's amazing. So laughter is the fastest way to create a positive state of mind. We will spend the rest of this chapter discovering together how to achieve a positive state of mind even after digging yourself quite deep into a state of depression. And I can attest to that. So here are a few attitude shorts lining the computer monitor in my office. Have you prayed about it? Trial has no power of its own unless you plug it in. Oh, I love that one. I came up with it all by myself. Without the battle, there is no win. Opportunity. Look for it. I have something to prove. Oh, I read that one every day. And then this one. Attitude is everything. Wow. Now see, You love that, don't you? And don't you love these attitude shorts? Write those down. Put them on your computer terminal. So let's talk about winning way number 3. Fake it till you make it, or behave until you believe. Now, the word, because I use the word fake, I know that you're going to maybe form a negative opinion of winning way number 3. But notice that I have included the subtitle of using the word behave. That's a little softer. I invite you to look at your behavior during specific periods in your life when you imitated a happy persona, when in fact, deep down, you felt exactly the opposite. You didn't consider that behavior fake, did you? You weren't trying to deceive anyone. You probably felt that you were acting grown up because that's what grown ups do. Taught parents, teachers, coaches, your entire life. Just suck it up, Chuck, is what I heard more than once around my home school, and of course, Coach Spa out there on the football field. Do you remember my reference earlier in this book about garbage in, garbage out? The mind is a beautiful thing, folks. Attempt at satire, I don't mind, but it can turn ugly when fed garbage. During my period of deep depression back in the day, I fed my brain on negative feelings of failure as a provider and allowed those feelings to affect my self-worth as a human being. I'm not proud of that period in my life, but I am proud that I did not stay there. I can remember, as if it were yesterday, running into a good friend of mine in a parking lot as I was walking to my car from my office in Mesa. He made the mistake, albeit out of natural reaction as part of a greeting. He said, "How are things going?" Oh man, I remember spewing all over him every negative feeling I had built up. And when I had finished unloading my baggage, he looked a little like he had been sprayed with something green and gooey out of a Ghostbusters movie as we parted ways, and I watched him try to find his car parked right in front of him. And it was then I realized I had just spewed negative all over a well meaning friend who had only asked a simple question as a gesture of friendship, but was treated with green slime and said, "This had to change." I vowed that. So this is how the door to change of behavior is open. We reach the tipping point of our questionable behavior and finally admit to ourselves that we need to change. But it usually takes an episode or two, like mine, before we recognize a behavior change is necessary. You ask yourself, how did I get here? Well, the silent answer is most often garbage in, garbage out. When we feed our mind with negative thoughts, we are prone to spew out negativity. I can attest to this from my own experience. These days, when social media has become the information channel of choice, keeping a strong self image while watching the lives of perfect people unfold before us is exceedingly difficult. If we don't do something to counteract the negative in from comparing our lives to theirs, we become like a ship lost at sea during a raging storm, taking on water with no bilge pump to remove it to stay afloat. It's just a matter of time, folks, before the ship is underwater. Although I can't dedicate sufficient space in this book to cover every aspect of depression, I can call your attention to habits and actions that produce a breeding ground for either positive thinking or negative thoughts over time. We do have a choice. It starts with desire, like I shared in the paragraphs above. A willingness to change is essential in recovering from a case of the blues. That same desire to change is doubly critical in recovering from depression or any other type of addiction because of the firm hold that it has over you. My dear mother struggled with alcoholism. Before she passed away, I was left with a mental picture of her sitting on the side of her bed at the recovery center. her small frame stripped of any meat on her bones, slumped over, head hanging low. I tried pleading with her to stop drinking, start attending AA, and give up this life before it took hers. Do you have impact moments in your life that you will never forget, no matter how old and senile you get? Like, where were you when 9/11 happened? Well, I will forever remember my mother's answer to my attempts at convincing her to change. She said with her head still hung low, her voice barely audible, "I will quit when I am blankety blank, good and ready to quit, and not 1 minute before." Well, when you read further into this book about opportunity and trial, I want you to think about this experience with my mother. She wasn't weak. She was so strong in her protection of her son and daughter. She would do anything for them. But through her trial, she taught me an understanding of human nature that would serve me well, even now, for many years to come. People will change their ways when their mind and heart is open to change, and not 1 minute before. And I call that the tipping point to change. Now, enter trial. Trial is often the catalyst to effect change. At least it can open the door to change, even if just a crack. Like faith, able to sprout just from a seed, change often requires the ground to be broken open before seeds of change can be planted. Actual change doesn't occur as simply as I've described it as the planting of a seed, but when the heart finally welcomes, or perhaps only accepts, the need for change, it is most often the result of the kind of trial that hurts, sufficient to humble us and open our heart to change. I now understand that one of the purposes of trial is to prepare the ground. Stories abound in recorded scripture of individuals, families, and even entire people who have changed from their wicked ways after experiencing trial. In my 5 years serving prison ministry, the inmates at the Arizona Department of Corrections, ADOC, the prison facility in Florence, Arizona, to be specific, for many years, I heard from many about how ironic it was that they had to experience prison life before their heart became open sufficiently to allow positive change. This was from the inmates. I witnessed time and time again an actual change of nature within several of these throwaways of society, as many of those who are against prison reform would call them. I know from experience and witnessing firsthand that change is possible in every human being who wants to change. It took a terrible experience while under the influence of alcohol, resulting in near death, for my mother to finally open her heart to change. And it took a desire deep enough to sink into my soul for me to finally seek help. I have come to see trial differently now. I now understand one of the purposes of trial is to prepare the ground. Please do not go looking for trial as a cure for what ails you, a phrase my dad used to say. I have devoted the entire chapter 4 to choice, because trial does not always bring positive change, and often does not because of the agency of man and woman to choose how he or she will respond to opposition in all things. Like my mother, I too did change, and thankfully for the better, not immediately and not without many slips in the process, But I eventually changed because I wanted to change. My first call was not to God at that point, as it should have been. Remember winning way number one? It was to blame myself. I failed to accept the truth of Christ's atonement for the one, even a sinner like me who fell but kept getting up. I could not pass the blame for my financial failures to anyone but me. I suppose I felt, without really knowing it, that I had elevated myself above the atonement. Whew. Remember the scripture warning in Proverbs: pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. One writer defines pride as a turning away from God, specifically to take satisfaction from oneself. Is it possible to take satisfaction from the destruction caused by pride, you ask? Well, I suppose in some dark way there is satisfaction in self-misery, a kind of defeatist attitude that sells the idea that you deserve to be caught in this fog of depression and continual grief. But the author of this type of thinking is not Jesus Christ, I promise you. In the spirit of love, please take this chapter seriously. Attitude is so fragile, it can determine your course in life. It can influence your choices. It can be the difference between success and failure in marriage, in career, or even destiny after life. Attitude will even accompany you from this life to the next. Yep, we'll still have that same attitude. If you're currently struggling with feelings of hopelessness, self-blame, loss of interest in pleasurable activities, or profound and lengthy bouts of continued sadness, you may require the assistance of a trained professional to guide you through the healing process. I was so prideful in my battle with depression that when I finally admitted I could not win this battle on my terms, in my way, and sought help from a professional, I almost ran out of his office after slapping down a check for $75 on his desk on my way out the door, not because I was cured, but that I could not see how in the world this man was going to help me. I could not see through my own selfish pride. I ran to my car, sat behind the wheel for a moment, letting the frustration build within me, and then it broke. I am told that by hitting my steering wheel as hard as I did, I was fortunate the airbag didn't explode into my face. But at that moment, I didn't care. I had made the prideful decision that no one could help me but God, and I told him so. I sometimes wonder what God thought of me when I rejected professional help and just turned it over to him. Some readers might consider it as a sign of great faith to turn my trial over to God. But as much as I would love to think that it was an act of faith, I'm more inclined to give an honest assessment that my action was more of an attempt to punish God. My heart was just not humble enough to get on my knees and admit I couldn't crawl out from this hole. So I just sort of threw my problem to God and said, "Here, you fix it." Folks, I don't recommend that type of relationship building exercise at all with anyone, let alone your Heavenly Father. Things did not immediately improve. Unfortunately for my wife and family, things didn't improve for quite a while. Pride is like a bulletproof vest, protecting the soft spot within my heart from allowing the seeds of change to enter. I just got more frustrated with myself, and that anger was directed at my family. How does that song go? You always hurt the ones you love, the ones you shouldn't hurt at all. Maybe my Heavenly Father got tired of seeing me about to destroy the relationship I had built with my wife and young, impressionable children. I don't have an answer for what happened next or why. Perhaps He knows the intent of our heart much better than we give Him credit. I didn't want to lose my family. I think He knew that. But how could I be the kind of father and husband I needed to be when I couldn't stop beating up on myself? Can you ever reach your potential when you hate the person you have become? Growing up, I remember my mother telling me more than once that no one can make you happy. And she would usually follow that up with, "You are in charge of your attitude. No one else is." Although in concept I agree with my mother's wise counsel, I must admit a pint of Rocky Road ice cream and a spoon goes a long way to bring a smile to my face. But to a person with depression, that brief reprieve generally lasts only as long as the last bite of their favorite dessert. Those of us who have experienced depression and those currently experiencing it likely will agree there is a difference between the rocky road happiness and the emotional state of happiness that leads to joy. I remember occasionally feeling periods of emotion resembling happiness, but they were just lighter state of mind. A lighter mood, definitely not the type of happiness a person could claim as a long-lasting change of behavior. I remember making a $100,000 commission from selling a large parcel of land to a home builder client of mine, and after I picked up the check from title, I went to the bank and deposited my share of the commission and then went home to bed, feeding my depressed state. It was definitely one of the lowest points in my life, instead of being a fun celebration. What changed? Attitude drives or begets behavior. I hope the transparency of my personal failings and faults doesn't cause you to doubt the truthfulness of the concepts and winning ways taught in this book. When my walk on earth ends, I want my tombstone to read, "He just kept getting up." And that's attitude. And that's also choice. Chapter 4 is all about choice. As I shared with you, I too believe attitude is a choice. Roy T. Bennett said, "Kindness is a choice. Giving is a choice. Respect is a choice. Whatever choice you make makes you. So choose wisely." Let me say that again. Whatever choice you make makes you. So choose wisely. But I share the lowest parts of my life with you in this book to let you know that sometimes you are so full of bad feelings about yourself that you can't easily choose to be happy. You want to, but you can't convince your face. Trying to act happy when your insides are sick with feelings of low self-esteem and disappointment is like trying to climb an icy mountain wearing roller skates. Something has to change. And for me, it took a reprogram of my stinkin' thinking. Now, please don't get discouraged by my creative description of roller skating the Matterhorn. Depression, low self-esteem, and feelings of hopelessness can be beaten. So can a negative attitude, but it's not going to be easy. Now, where was I before my departure into chapter 4? Oh, yes, I was just about to tell you of my miraculous recovery. Side note, he really can't tell one story without losing himself in another, can he? Go back into the words of the book. Anyway, fast forward to summertime and a much needed family vacation in a rented casita on the beach of Lake Tahoe. Woohoo! But that didn't stop me from acting like a jerk. I had just scattered my family from my presence with a fit of anger and was left behind to entertain myself when a door The knock on the door startled me. I gruffly opened the door to confront the intruder, and there stood a man, all of about 5 foot tall, wearing a beanie hat, shorts, very colorful socks, and a golf club in his hand. I later learned he was warned that he might need it. An interesting person at my door introduced himself as a friend of my brother-in-law we were traveling with and said he was told I was a golfer. I nodded in affirmative and waited for his response, which was to invite me to be his partner in completing a foursome, ready to tee off at that very moment. And what was strange about the entire exchange was my attitude in accepting a stranger's invitation to play golf when all I really wanted was to stay in and feed my hurt pride. We became acquainted as we walked across the street and down a couple of blocks to the first tee. And over the course of 9 holes of golf, I learned that my partner was a doctor in Sun City, Arizona. His specialty? Depression. I have taken more than enough of your time detailing, maybe in too much detail, my path to healing from depression. But it is so important to me that you understand, number one, you are not alone in your trial. And number two, there is hope that this too shall pass. This chance encounter with Dr. X led to me driving from Mesa, where we lived at the time, to his office in Sun City, and that was before freeways, twice a week for a few months, while he assessed and treated my medical condition as well as my mental condition. I mean, who does that? Where did this guy come from? How could he have been so prepared to diagnose my body's electrical system as being severely banged up due to the stress I was under, throwing my physical being into a near state of breakdown, and my low self-image so low it had no resistance to the negative self-talk I was feeding it? But he did know. Choose to feed your mind a diet of positive affirmations. We will talk more about the reprogramming of the mind that is often necessary to realize the greatness within each of us. If your personal goal is to lead a fulfilling, productive life, leading to becoming all that you can be, then your diet of negative self-talk must change, as did mine. It is so amazing how the silent subconscious mind works like a sponge to store every bit of information fed into it from our eyes, tongue, nose, and ears, and we pay so little attention to it, if any. Would it surprise you to learn that according to scientific study, the subconscious part of your mind occupies 90% of space in your mind house? And your conscious mind, the part of your thought process most familiar to us, occupies only 10%? Would it surprise you further to learn that this vast space in your mind house can't tell the difference between fiction and truth? It has no logic base, as does the conscious mind, so it essentially digests whatever you feed it. Thus the saying, garbage in, garbage out. In my recovery from chronic depression, I had to essentially reprogram my mind to the extent of feeding it more positive messages designed to heal my troubled mind and low self-image. This knowledge might help you understand why you don't feel uplifted after scrolling through social media for hours. Do you know that no matter how fast you scroll through social media, stories and reels, that your subconscious sponge still captures those images and feelings you transmit to it and sends the message to your body's nervous system that you don't measure up? Everyone is having more fun than you. Everyone looks better, makes more money, has more toys, takes more trips. I mean, this is likely why we see repeated warnings to limit our impressionable children's exposure to social media. I wonder if there is a correlation between heavy video, social media, non-reality immersion, and teen suicides. Imagine achieving a personal state of happiness whenever you want. Even writing about depression and having to relive that very dark period of my life creates some downward pull to my heartstrings. Do you see how easily the infusion of certain information can impact how you feel? The dictionary defines attitude as a psychological construct, a physical and emotional entity that characterizes a person. Our attitudes are complex. Boy, that's an understatement. And are an acquired state through experiences. Did you get that? It's acquired. And what I love about this dictionary definition of attitude is the assurance it gives us that our current state of mind can become whatever we want it to be. Music, please. Maestro, celebrate. I just asked Siri to play Celebrate by Three Dog Night, a favorite of mine back in the mid 70s, and before I knew it, I was out of my chair because my smartwatch had been telling me for 30 minutes that it was time to stand, and dancing to this feel good music, getting my steps in, all thoughts of my former depressed state now replaced with some positive vibe all through my body. Now, can you really choose to be happy? Well, when you decide to adopt a positive frame of mind, you open the door to all sorts of possibilities, one of which is achieving a state of happiness. However, according to a recent podcast featuring Hank Smith, a highly sought after, entertaining, motivational speaker and the best selling author of many books and audio CDs, and happiness is not a choice. Yeah, he's been around a long time. He's got audio CDs, right? Happiness is the result of many choices, often repeated. Let me tell you, happiness is not a choice. That's what he's saying. Happiness is the result of many choices, often repeated. Boy, although I still believe that the pursuit of happiness begins with a choice, better over bitter, remember that? I will concede that true and lasting happiness is the result of many smaller incidental choices. You got that? It's not going to happen with one choice in one day. It will happen one as a result of wanting to change, and two, being patient, the result of many smaller incidental choices to be happy. All right, now happiness is often compared to a work of art. It is said that a beautiful painting is not accomplished because the wannabe artist decided one day to buy some brushes, a paint and palette, and set aside the afternoon to paint a beautiful picture. I suppose the intent of this comparison is to insinuate that attaining a skill to become an artist capable of producing a beautiful work of art is accomplished over time, with the artist developing basic art skills learned and practiced daily. Failure is experienced, faith is tried, and often a mentor is called in to help, and once again, different brushstrokes are learned, practiced, and internalized. And in time, our artist might produce a painting worthy of hanging on a wall in a house of love. While this comparison between attaining an attitude of happiness and learning to paint a beautiful picture may sound rational to you, even attainable, I must say that when I was in the depths of despair, the long road to happiness as described above would have discouraged me from even trying. I didn't have the faith to look that far into the future. Thankfully, I learned a great lesson in my first year college psych class 101 that changed my thinking about the power of the mind to affect attitude without actually becoming an artist to produce a work of art. I have three such paintings as described above. because I followed this exact formula my college professor taught me. First, the motivation to even try from her, Dr. Cummings. You won't receive an A in this class unless you teach yourself how to produce a work of art. This was on the first day of class. Where do you get the power to change your attitude? It comes from a deep desire to become better. If happiness is your goal, and I suggest that a few of us intentionally want to change our attitude from happiness to unhappiness at times, few of us do, we'd rather be happy. But you must dig within and find a reason to change. And I wanted an A in that class. No, I had to have an A to accomplish my goal of graduating. You must have to want to change. Now, the next step leading to an A for the class involved a number 2 pencil and a blank sheet of paper. Learn to reproduce a simple picture onto your blank sheet of paper, a line at a time, and use your eraser a lot until you have created your masterpiece, read the instructions from Professor Cummings. In changing your attitude, you must decide who you want to be. I decided I had had enough of spewing green negative slime over anyone unfortunate enough to ask, "How are you?" I decided I did not want to be that person any longer. And so I chose the word marvelous as my subject to copy. Anytime someone asked me how things were going or how are you, I would respond time after time, marvelous. And you know what? Just creating that word into my being, like, the Etch-a-Sketch, made me feel a tingle at first. And then eventually I felt the power to change. Folks, even today, decades later, and those of you that are listening to this or read the book, when asked that same question, how are you? How are things going? You know how I respond. I respond in the same manner as I did back in decades ago. Marvelous. And I mean it. I don't even see all the negative that I know is there and the struggle and the mountains I've been climbing. It truly has become part of my nature and positive state of mind to let the word marvelous cloud out, move out, replace, put it in a bag, Mr. Negative. Each week we brought our work to class to show the other classmates, and the results were amazing. From pencil sketching to charcoal, watercolors, and then to oils. I admit to running into trouble a few times when my learning curve got a little too steep, but thankfully my wife's mother had already mastered that learning curve many years earlier and could make up for my deficiencies by adding just the proper brushstroke. It's amazing what a little experience on a palette will do. As the semester drew to a close, the final exam was to show our work to the class. I was never so proud of my accomplishments, and I did receive an A in the course. But what was more important than receiving a top grade was the reality that I had done my best and that my mother-in-law had made up the difference between my best and getting an A. Well, if that statement sounds a little familiar to you, it's because we all fall short of receiving an A for our attempts at becoming perfect. Just read Matthew 5:48 and you'll see. Your journey to the world of self-inflicted happiness will not happen overnight. Yes, it does take time to become a true artist. And yes, it does take time to completely change your nature from one persona to another, to a place in your world where happiness radiates from your heart through your eyes, lips, words, and actions. But the journey of becoming is absolutely within your power to begin feeling different, happier the very first time you show your work being a positive affirmation, marvelous or awesome or whatever word that makes both the giver and the receiver feel good. And it only gets better each time you reach a new level in becoming. So here's a side note to you. I have to ask, did you catch my reference a couple of paragraphs ago when I told the story of how my mother-in-law added a few experienced brushstrokes to my painting after I had done my best to complete the assignment? I genuinely hope this resonates with your own story of falling in your journey toward becoming, only to fall short of perfection. Yet, your Savior, my Savior, no matter your beliefs, folks, He makes up the difference by feeling every negative experience you and I will ever have. By His atoning sacrifice on the cross of Calvary, He lovingly makes up the difference whenever we fall. Repent and get back up again to try harder. His experienced brushstrokes show evidence of compassion and love toward us, no matter how often we make a mistake. I just wanted to bear my sincere testimony of a loving God, a forgiving Savior, and an inexperienced mentor. An experienced mentor, didn't sound right, who stands at the ready with arms open and hands extended, and all we need to do is ask. Now that God, that forgiving Savior, that experienced mentor stands at the ready with his arms open, his hands extended, and all you have to do is ask. Now, according to Hank Smith's podcast, as referenced earlier, there are 12 practice strokes every wannabe happy person needs to do. All right, number one, happy people have happy friends. I remember years ago learning wise counsel in a seminar taught by Charlie Tremendous Jones. You will be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. I think I would phrase this sage counsel slightly a little updated. We become like the people we most often spend time with and the information we feed our brain. Number two, happy people try to be happy, even when they're not. You see, your brain responds well to happy thoughts. Take a break and for 2 minutes, think happy thoughts and add that reminder to your smartwatch. Number three, happy people use their signature strengths, those activities that fill you with energy. Now, before you move on to the next brushstroke, take a moment and think about which activities make you feel happy. What do you consider your signature strength? Wisdom, courage, love, humor, happy, adventurous, thinker, leader? Make your own list and name as many personal strengths you have now, and then make another list of strengths you wish you had. Spend time developing the ones you have and have fun exploring the ones you wish you had, and you will amaze yourself with the results. Now, happy people spend money, but it is most often for others. I wondered about this until my wife and I were recipients of another person's generosity. Oh, we were overcome with gratitude. It genuinely inspired us to pay it forward. Number five, happy people have in-person conversations to build upon relationships. In person. This is a good one. How do you feel when after weeks or months you attend a gathering of friends? I bet you can remember being quarantined from COVID right? And that memory probably doesn't make you feel happy, does it? Then think about how you felt to finally go outside and take a walk, waving to every car that passed by. How did you feel? Silly, but happy. Or to meet a friend for lunch and catch up. Wasn't that the best feeling? Number 6, happy people laugh. Children, on average, laugh 300 times a day. Adults laugh 15 times a day. 1 5. My wife and I just finished watching one of the best Hallmark movies made, which was more comedy than romantic drama, and we laughed and laughed for 2 hours. It was so fun just to laugh. I remember times in my life, usually late at night, when I would get into a silly mode and start laughing. My laughter would escalate to a high C and I couldn't control it, which got everybody else laughing. Like other muscles, our laugh muscles weaken without regular use. But it was fun making other people laugh. Number 7. Number 7. Happy people use music to make themselves happier. Do you want your children to fight less? Play classical music. There was a time when my wife and I would alternate picking up one of our grandsons from school when he was in elementary, and I used to love it when it was my turn. And then Tyler would get in the back seat, buckle up his seat belt, and ask, "Granddad, could you please put on some classical music? I feel a little stressed today." Isn't that the sweetest? This love for classical music started because we spent so much time together, and I would often have classical music on when he was with me. Other times I would ask him what his choice of tunes would be, and most often he would say, "Classical." Now remember, I was a self-taught drummer in a lounge rock and western band, so I like music with a beat, right? Well, number 8, happy people always seem to have something fun to look forward to. Put something on the calendar to look forward to, however insignificant. Celebrate National Donut Day. Calendar a walk through the local city park with a friend. You can buy tickets in advance to see a new movie showing at the local movie theater and invite a family member or friend to go with you. Happy people, this is number 9, happy people exercise and eat well. Uh-oh. There is a scientific evidence that consistent exercise coupled with healthy eating habits has so many benefits that don't necessarily include weight loss, which seems to be on everyone's mind these days, with gyms full of fad diets alive and well. But that's scientific evidence. Consistent is the term, coupled with healthy eating habits. So my top 10 benefits include, in no particular order, antidepressant, reduces stress and anxiety, boosts creativity, strengthens the heart. Now these are happiness benefits. Stave off age-related vision loss. Just don't get your cataracts removed because you may see things clearer. Number 6, live longer and happier. Number 7, every dollar spent on preventative health, it saves $2.71 in future medical costs. I, I don't know where I got that one. Anyway, number 8, improve self-esteem. I like that one. And number 9, helps get better sleep. And number 10, slows down the aging process. Whoa. Happiness, laughter slows down the aging process. I believe that. So don't forget that these other benefits to healthy eating pumps up the immune system, creates more energy, reduces cravings for bad for you food, enhances exercise, and lessens insomnia. Number 10, happy people go outside for at least 20 consecutive minutes. When it's cooler, of course, probably not right now, and the summer's just about on us. Maybe they go to the mall and exercise. Leave your wallet in the car. No pulling your wallet or purse out. We're not talking about exercising your wrist or watching your bank account go up and down. So eat outside, take a brisk walk, walk the dog, visit a neighbor, walk to the cluster mailbox, ride your bike to the corner gas station, or sit outside and people watch as cars and neighbors go by. Practice happy waving like you mean it. You see, with the COVID quarantine entire communities to their homes, school, work, church, even shopping, there were just more homebound infirmities than ever. According to a report from the National Academies of Science, social isolation has been associated with a significantly increased risk of premature mortality from all causes, including a higher risk of developing dementia and coronary heart disease, cancer, increased risk of stroke. Well, that's a good one. My wife had her knee replaced recently, and she has been walking in the house, and because it's level and safe, and we've kind of created a little track on the inside from as you come in the door, and then you go around the living room, and then through the kitchen and around the counter and back up to the entry door again. And we've learned to do that. Well, now I've on my days off from the gym, I've been doing that. And it's just amazing. And I'll get a mile in right here in my own little home. Pretty amazing what you can do. Number 11, happy people get enough sleep. Well, this is one that I probably need to read more about because I'm just not able to get it done in the day now. So I'm kind of taken some time away from sleep, and I can tell you that has a bad effect. Although we're all unique individuals and we all have different body and mind compositions, we all need sleep, and they will tell you. There's an article on Business Insider that more sleep equals a happy person. So studies show that our bodies thrive with more sleep. People who sleep between 8 and 9.5 hours at night tend to wake up happier. However, almost nobody regularly sleeps over 8 hours a night. Most of us get less than 7.5 hours a night, usually calling it a day around 11:30, and then depending on your commute time, you may rise and be in the car by 6 or earlier. This type of schedule over time, folks, will take a toll. I promise you. And the toll is often a steep price of happiness deprivation. So get some extra sleep for a month and then just put it to the test. What's to lose? All right, number 12. Happy people meditate and pray. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. Just practice sitting still and letting your mind focus on a single idea or thought for 10 minutes. Set a timer if it makes you feel better. According to a 2017 Policy Genius blog, meditation can actually change your brain, not just subjectively make you feel better. It can actually make you happier. Woo! Well, ponder, meditate, just sit and be quiet. Often referred to as mindfulness. That's even on my watch. How many minutes of mindfulness? Not mindlessness, which I normally do. It's mindfulness. The consistent practice of meditation was strongly related to a positive state of mind and stress reduction. So praying is like having a private conversation with a friend who doesn't like the chance to visit with a friend and do all the talking. I mean, that's amazing. But here's a switch up for you. How about praying first and then meditating after? I think you may be pleasantly surprised at the outcome. So here's a thought. Be brave, even if you're not. Pretend to be. No one can tell the difference. Oh, don't you love that? I've laid out a lot of information, folks. Case studies, facts, testimonies, and other reasons to choose how to become a positive person, a happy person, a balcony person. But no matter how convincing it sounds, it all comes down to attitude toward change. Let's pretend, just between us, that you are happy. Can you think of something that made you happy? Maybe write down a couple of things you enjoy doing that cause you to feel pleasure. As a kid, I remember loving Saturday mornings because that's where my favorite cartoons were on. And after my chores of cleaning my room and bathroom, I got to watch Mickey Mouse cartoons. The expectation of being able to watch TV, even if it was black and white, made me happy. But when Mickey said, "See ya next week," my whole demeanor changed. I fell in countenance like a balloon that just lost its air. I became grumpy and pouted when my mom gave me something else to do, like homework or more chores. My happy disposition changed once my happy time ended. Now, fast forward many years, and I still love going to the movies today. I love the anticipation of going. I love to talk all week about what we're going to see. I love driving to the movie theater, the fresh popcorn smell and rush of cold air when I open the door to the lobby, and my excitement when I see a short line at the refreshment counter. Arriving early enough to watch the previews of upcoming movies is also a big part of going to the movies. Eating popcorn a kernel at a time with occasional sips of a soft drink while the countdown to the previews begins is such a pleasant experience. The movie itself was fun to experience, but then the walk afterwards past the big trash container open to receiving my leftovers seemed to act as the portal to reality. As I continued through the lobby, not failing to notice happy faces of anticipation lining up for their refreshment selection, and perhaps feeling a bit envious that they are about to experience movie magic and ours had ended. The feeling of anticipation satisfied, and the weight of real life once again falling upon me. It is at this moment that I have a choice to either stay a little gloomy or behave like I am happy and maybe put on some happy music or force myself to laugh at something my wife says. Excuse me, dear. Honest, I didn't mean to say it like that, sweetie. Ouch. What I have just described is how life is. We experience ups and downs all the time. We learn that being happy is temporary, just like my experience at the movies. Although we don't think about it, we were not meant to always be in a state of happiness. Yet the natural man, natural woman inside us seems to think otherwise. When I was young, I was hooked on external means of achieving a desired state of happiness every Saturday morning. And boy, if something got in the way of that goal, I'm telling you, I put up a stink. And as I grow older, I found that my attitude didn't change much. I still needed external means to fund my desired state of happiness. And I suppose I still do to some degree. But because I was designed to experience both joy and pain, life isn't always a state of happiness. By the time I reached adulthood, I was expected to stop throwing tantrums when life didn't turn out the way the Hallmark movies do. I had to learn that the guy doesn't always get the girl, and the promotion at work doesn't always come through. If we continue to look for external causes for happiness as our only means of achieving a state of happiness, that positive attitude, we will likely make ourselves and consequently those who love us very miserable. Creating a positive state of mind within us should be one of our goals in life. You can call it what you think best fits your goal, but I have chosen to seek an attitude of happiness. I have seen what this attitude does for me and those around me, and I want this attitude to be one of my legacy hallmarks. This choice of attitude affects the subconscious in much the same way it picks up and stores negative information. My conscious goal then is to purposefully fill my subconscious mind with more positive than negative input, to feed my brain with healthy information. A simple example of this would be a daily practice of seeing the positive side of life. And I don't mean a movie. An example of practicing daily to see the positive side of life could start the minute you wake up by holding back a while the temptation to check social media or respond to an email that came in during the night, and build into your plan to attain an attitude of happiness by first feeding your mind with appreciation. I have found that when I start each day on my knees in private supplication to my Heavenly Father, giving appreciation for even life itself, no matter the state of affairs at the time, it gives me more internal confidence to face whatever challenges might lie ahead. At first, it took a concentrated effort on my part to see a visual picture of how many appreciations I could come up with to fill the positive side of my brain, much like filling the gas tank on my VW Atlas at Costco. But in time, it became a habit to begin my day this way because of the way it made me feel. I felt happier and more confident knowing I wasn't alone to face the day, whatever life would bring. One advantage of growing older is the perspective it gives you of the now. You gain a yardstick of sorts with which to measure the days of old against the here and now. That too is interpreted by your attitude, but sometimes it just takes observation to see differences. I remember the term road rage becoming a term used to describe how a driver of one vehicle would retaliate toward another because something set one driver off. They each used a moving vehicle to express violent anger, generally caused by frustration over something and the aggressive driver's inability to deal with it civilly. We also have a similar condition as road rage displaying itself in our society, but this time it uses social media as the vehicle of choice. We call this attitude form cyberbullying because it usually happens in a public forum created online when someone makes a post. Others comment, someone disagrees, and instead of agreeing to disagree, this phenomenon condition of what if I don't agree with you that gives me the right to hate you plays out in words of anger and frustration against one another. This condition might be uh, increased due to COVID, but it started way before the months and months of self isolation and a means of curbing the spread of this virus. Clearly, our society today has taken a few giant steps backwards when it comes to politeness and civility toward others. Yet many recognize this destructive behavior as an attitude that can be changed and offer such remedies as relaxation techniques to help us gain awareness and control over our natural instincts, such as breathing techniques, healthy eating, exercise habits, and so on. One such technique for gaining control over mind and body is called mindfulness. Refer to number 12 in the attributes of happy people discussed earlier. I love this term because it infers personal control over the mind to produce positive results within the body, such as reduced anxiety and stress and the release of hidden creativeness within us due to negative self-incriminations. Mindfulness is another term that has as its root a form of meditation, such as one would encounter in a yoga class, where technique is learned on how to achieve a oneness between mind and body to gain greater control in reaching a state of peace, allowing the body and mind to heal from the stress and anxieties of daily life. The term mindfulness can also be considered a mental state or conscious condition of attitude in which a person learns to become aware of their present state and by using specific learned techniques may positively affect change. Although my solid bone structure makes an invitation to a Hawaiian luau seem like torture, I have recently started with basic yoga stretching techniques and incorporated some mindfulness exercises to help clear my brain of yesterday's recorded negative self-talk. Hopefully this chapter on attitude will open doors to a higher awareness of how your thoughts affect your behavior. and how to embrace attitude as a living, breathing condition full of choice and opportunity to defeat any trial that may enter the ring of life with you at any given moment. But this time you will be prepared. When trial strikes again, as it surely will, if you have attained some measure of the desired attitude of happiness, aka positive attitude, I suggest this state of mindfulness, a feeling of choice to come over you before you automatically react negatively to the opponent's presence. Choose to stay in your desired mental condition of happiness and refuse to allow this negative flow of information, anxiety, what ifs, and second guessing darts of fear to enter your mind. Instead, fill your mind with positive affirmations and see yourself overcoming this temporary condition with a positive outcome. Consider the state of our world when it was affected by the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. It's not hard to find someone, or it was not hard to find someone near you, even yourself, who has not been affected in some way by this disease, and yours truly included. Speaking frankly, since the announcement of the wild spread of that virus throughout the land, my real estate business was impacted in more ways than just providing a consistent income over those many months. As negative as that may sound, however, I can say that I managed my outlook for the future opportunity to change and to grow despite the impact on my business. I was able to remain steadily optimistic without external influences to necessarily stimulate that outlook. In fact, if I can recall my comments to my wife about our tentative condition, it was more like, I'm excited to see what doors of opportunity will open for us during this trial. Just having that frame of mind helped both my wife and I to feel more optimistic about the future and opened my mind to greater possibilities. Couple that state of mind with your own prayers to your Heavenly Father, expressing gratitude for His blessings of mental clarity and awareness to recognize opportunity, and pow! Down went your trial opponent. Now, here's an interesting side note to the above experience during the COVID days. I'm currently experiencing a similar state of the real estate industry trial to the one during the COVID years, which has been caused in part by the ripple effect on industry products, services, and inflation. And I'm once again practicing my positive self talk and mindfulness stretching exercises to see me through this recurring feast or famine industry condition I have lived with for the past 54 years. I am both a visual learner and a verbal processor, which is why I feel the need to provide visual examples in my writings, and one of the reasons why, at times, I seem to wander off topic a bit. A verbal processor needs to express his decision making process, even frustrations, out loud to someone, like his spouse. Oh, it took years of doing this before I realized the power my often negative verbal processing had on my wife. She was a natural processing partner. Her dominant personality trait is listening, and her love language is quality time. She has that gift of listening and not necessarily feeling the need to outdo the speaker or verbal processor while still in the middle of a thought, like many of us are prone to do. But I was devastated when she finally mustered the courage to tell me she felt like going to bed after I had finished sliming her with my often negative thoughts and fears. I left her depressed, with feelings of hopelessness because she didn't hear an ounce of hope in my rantings. I might have felt better, but she was often out for the count. Wow, think about that. Is that going on in your household? Now, I contrast that experience with my earlier story of how my real estate business had been impacted, but instead of expressing fear and uncertainty, I expressed excitement for change and about the opportunity that would surely come. At that moment, I realized again the power to influence others with our words and tone of voice. attitude of happiness, that expression, it has power. Before we move on, please indulge me with one more attempt at convincing you of the advantages of developing an attitude of gratitude, aka state of happiness, as my longtime motivational speaker hero Zig Ziglar often called it. People who think positively are usually healthier than those who think negatively. The mind has a strong effect on the body and health. And when you think positively, your immune system is healthier and your body recuperates faster. I've heard this saying before. It isn't our position, but our disposition that makes us happy. Your attitude and how you think, your thoughts, have much to do with how you feel about yourself. If you adopt a positive attitude and think positively, you will have a better opinion of yourself, which means a more positive, healthier sense of self esteem. So don't worry about the negative people and what they think and say about you. When you have a positive attitude towards yourself, the people around you will often have a better opinion of you and treat you with more respect. A great quote that comes from Francesca Riegler: happiness is an attitude. Isn't that what we've been saying all along here? We either make ourselves miserable or happy and strong. The amount of work is the same. Then let's choose to be happy and strong. So as we finish this chapter, let me provide you with 5 steps to a positive attitude. Step 1: desire to change. The fact that you spent money to purchase a book that teaches winning ways to win through trial is sufficient evidence that you have at least a trace of desire to improve your attitude. So let's keep this train a moving down the track. Sometimes we must cultivate desire by listing things we want to change about ourselves. Can you recall your last trial? Not necessarily the most impactful one, but an experience or condition that took your breath away. How did you react? Are you content with the way you behaved? Is there room for improvement? What are the chances you might win at something if you don't actually believe you can? Your answer might be, well, I bought a lottery ticket not really believing I would win, but I did win. And you're cheering. Well, then I might argue that you did believe, or you never would have spent the money to purchase a lottery ticket. Either side can argue these points with varying degrees of accuracy, depending upon which side you choose to take. But in the end, those who win most often will attest to the benefits of training their mind to think positive. So let's continue our training. Step 2: accept responsibility for your actions. My mother was a sage fountain of wisdom, not the book learning type of wisdom, but the kind that only time on earth filled with trial can teach. Growing up, she would often catch me down in the dumps because of what someone did or didn't do to me at school, and she would say, "Charles, no one can make you happy or sad. It is you who choose to feel those emotions." Or another popular lecture topic of my mother was, oh, this is a good one: no one is responsible for your happiness but you. Oh, how many times did I say, but she made me happy or unhappy, but it was because of her I'm not happy. My mother was a very smart woman, and she knew no one is responsible for your happiness but you. So if you find yourself falling apart at the mere presence of trial, remember this truth: trial has no power of its own unless you plug it in. Remember that attitude short? You are responsible for your actions. So let's keep working toward a positive attitude. Step 3: forgive yourself and others. This step may seem odd at first, but I assure you, my years of assisting inmates incarcerated within Arizona state prisons to make their peace with God before they could change the personal nature that got them into trouble in the first place gave me a front row seat to witnessing the power forgiveness brings to the body and mind of the forgiver who wants to change. holding back forgiveness for those who have offended you and holding back forgiveness of ourselves only adds weight to the heart and kinkers the soul. There is no freedom of spirit when one is carrying the weight of non-forgiveness. If you focus on what you can change and leave the rest to God, you will free yourself up to feel the peace and calmness of spirit that comes when we forgive. Step 4. Avoid being slimed by other people. Hang out with people who reflect a happy vibe. It's a choice. Do you want to know what you'll be like in 5 years? Consider the books you read and the people you hang out with. We are heavily influenced by those with whom we associate, and what we read programs our mind for the good or otherwise. So let's pause for just a moment to give you time to complete this exercise. And with pencil and paper, write down the names of the last 3 books you read and the last 3 people you spent time with. Are you filling your mind with information to help prepare you to become all you can be? Are you spending quality time with quality people who are headed in the same direction as you? Only you can answer these questions based on your personal goals. But this little exercise serves as a gentle nudge and perhaps a course correction if needed. Step 5. Practice makes perfect. Oh, finally. Before we get to step 5, I had to cover the other steps to a positive attitude because you might not see the power behind this simple statement, fake it till you make it. Some of you have a problem accepting the first step of these 5 steps to a positive attitude because you don't know if you have enough desire to change or are merely dissatisfied with whom you are becoming. If that's you, then winning way number 3 is for you. Quick story. One Sunday after teaching a particularly difficult gospel doctrine lesson to a class of adult Sunday school, I was approached by one of the attendees who asked with sincerity, "Have you always been so happy? You seem to always have a smile on your face." I sobered at the question, instantly reflecting upon the slime story I just related to you. "Not at all," I answered truthfully. "In fact, for many years I allowed personal trial to define my actions. But once I had enough of slinging slime on others, my road to recovery started by faking it. I pretended to be happy whenever I was around other people, and over time it became more and more natural to feel that way. I could not tell this person just when it happened, but it did happen just the way I'm teaching you now. For me, I just got tired of being the slimer. I didn't necessarily see the 5 steps to developing a positive attitude as the foundation for winning. I just started by pretending I was happy. Certain personality temperaments discussed in this book will find this step particularly challenging. But you can still appear happy by the words you use when someone engages you in conversation. I started using the word marvelous when someone asked me how I was doing. No matter if green slime was dripping down the corners of my mouth, to this day the first word that comes out of my mouth when asked that question truly is marvelous. And the green slime is gone. If you will try this exercise for a while, I promise you will soon start to feel something different. It will likely be subtle at first, hardly noticeable, but I promise you will begin to feel a change before others see it. You were born to win, my friends, but sometimes it takes talking the talk to get your inner self to believe you can walk the walk. Have you noticed how often negative feelings course through your body when change is suggested? Oh man, it might be a sign that your defensive mechanism is working fine on call to ward off the presence of danger Or you may just be resistant to change, feeling quite comfortable the way things are, thank you, in what you don't know. In any case, negative feelings often arise during periods of change and must be dealt with, or they will assume control and often derail your progression. So respond to every negative feeling with a positive affirmation, and you will experience an amazing power that's beginning to grow within you. This power is positive energy. It comes as we begin to assume responsibility for our actions. Remember step 2? Responsibility. By choosing to feed our minds with offsetting positive thoughts, which eventually lead to positive actions. Have you ever received notice of a bill that you had missed paying? Ooh, just did. What was your reaction? If you're like me, there's never a good time for such surprises. And I would often let it ruin my day. I would sulk and pout and put on a front that said, "Man, I'm hurting. I dare you to ask me what's wrong." And I carried that sign on my face and persona for days. If you relate to such responses, try reacting by repeating a positive affirmation, such as, "I can handle this. I'm not losing my attitude over this silly bill." Repeat that affirmation every time you feel the negative energy start to course through your body before it has a chance to lay eggs in your brain. I mean, is that not a great visual when you begin to feel negative thoughts, big white colored or with stripe, eggs being laid in the cavity of your brain? That is precisely what happens when you allow the negative to control your thoughts and emotions, taking control of your actions. You cannot always control what happens to you, we know that, but you can determine how you respond. And when negative thoughts begin to lay eggs in your brain, retaliate with positive affirmations until the eggs disappear. Do not let them hatch. Filling your mind with positive affirmations also creates a time delay so that you are not led by your negative energy to do or say something you might very well regret later. Sending a hastily written email response or Facebook post to the cause of your negative energy might prove the worst course of action. Sometimes thanking an employer for terminating you is more effective than going to social media or sending a nasty letter of retribution, given that you're gone anyway, and no one can criticize your behavior for taking a positive approach to trial. Life in the positive zone isn't always positive because we are mortals, after all, and subject to the natural man and woman. If it feels good, do it. We've got that in us, don't we? Negative thoughts will still course through your mind, but in time you will learn how to handle those thoughts like a piece of junk mail. They're just not worth opening. If you want to make this book more than just a good read, then take a few moments and write down those conditions in your life that put you in the negative zone. Question: what was the first thing that came to your mind when you searched your mind for what is negative in your life right now? Is it something within your ability to change? If so, write a solution next to the negative condition or attitude. Take responsibility and write down how you will change it. If you cannot think of a solution right now to your most pressing negative situation, then begin opening your mind to receive such answers by writing a positive affirmation, such as, "I am in control of my life. My mind is open to solutions. I repel negative thoughts the moment they enter my brain. I absorb positive energy. My heart walks with God daily. I cannot tolerate negative energy, so I replace it with positive thoughts and affirmations. I look for opportunities to become better, not bitter, when negative enters my life." And so on, repeating at least 10 times per session, 3 times per day. Yes, 10 times a session, 3 times a day. With today's access to online information, you only need to Google positive affirmation to help you personalize positive programming, to help you move closer to defeating negative energy by replacing it with a generally positive attitude equipped with a plan to keep you between the lines. While ministering to the inmates incarcerated in Arizona prisons, I learned a very valuable lesson. Our nature can change. Mostly I'm referring to the hardcore criminal types, but so can the neighbor next door change. Our kids can change, and even you and I can change, given the right motivation and desire. Our personal nature can change to become better or to become bitter. One of the guiding goals of writing Winning Through Trial was to provide you with more than inspiration and encouragement, with a few captivating stories thrown in to keep your interest. I wanted to equip you with proven ideas and practices that you could implement immediately, even before reaching the last page of this book. I hope you have found that to be true thus far in your reading. In that same spirit, I offer these suggested attitude books as having been very helpful in my own recovery from negativeness. These are recommended books to influence positive thinking. Number one, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You know that one, it's still around. Folks, that information is priceless and timeless. So is The Power of Positive Thinking, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. These were life changers for me. They were life changers. I want to be that for you with this book. Another, How to Have Confidence and Power by Les Giblin. Good book. Lots of details, how-tos. Augmandino books. I think my favorite is The Choice. There's Attitude is Everything, Franklin Covey book. And then Think and Grow Rich. That was by Napoleon Hill. Shad Helmstetter. Oh man, he was a positive affirmation author. I loved him. You've got style. That was his mantra. You've got style, and his positive affirmations were about style. As we close out this chapter on attitude, let me point out again that changing our nature from negative to positive takes a lot of work, patience, forgiveness, and time. And in the process of winning, we fail over and over again. It's like a dance, 2 steps to the right, 1 to the left. And what we often don't realize is a combination of these dance steps that develops our style. As our attitude begins to change, so does our behavior, which is reflected in our personality. This combination of attitude, behavior, and personality is what I call style, which we are constantly in a state of developing. I call it becoming, throughout our entire life and beyond. Style is what makes us interesting. Our individual style will be our trademark as we go through life, changing, adjusting, improving, developing, and becoming. It is what will endear us to those we love. It is what will be reflected upon at our funeral and remembered as our legacy. It is what makes us different. It is what makes us great. Our beloved John Wayne, rest in peace, played a character known as Rooster Cogburn in the movie True Grit. Boy, he was anything but perfect, this rugged man of the Wild West, but he had style. Throughout the movie, the character of Reuben Rooster Cogburn is portrayed as cold, rude, and insensitive to love. His reputation as a U.S. Deputy Marshal brought him much acclaim, enhanced by fear that the stories of his quick hand on the gun and cold nature were true. He was sporting a patch over one eye, which had its loss from a gunfight, added to his character. But his unique walk, the eye patch, the giant frame, with an occasional hint of softness, endeared us to his style. I shall never forget the most intense action scene toward the end of True Grit, where Marshal Cogburn rode out to face an outlaw band of desperados. Totally outnumbered, and with the horse reins in his teeth and twin revolvers in each hand, he rode straight at 'em with both guns ablazing. I remember thinking, now that's how I want to go out, living life to its fullest, guns ablazing, reins in my teeth, charging hard to meet the next trial head on. Now that's style, my friends, and that's also choice. Style brings interest to a personality. A person's style often radiates their habits, tastes, actions, moral standards, even economic level, and of course, the subject of this chapter, attitude. A person's attitude is reflected in so many ways within a person's style, how they walk, talk, dress, drive, act, treat others, treat themselves, perform tasks, and so on. I suppose style in terms of attitude could also be detrimental to achieving success if society does not consider our actions and choices to be acceptable. But maybe a person's undesirable style might prove to be more successful for a time within the illegal framework of society, or even prove to be a benefit while incarcerated in a confined institution. A person who joins the military soon finds out that their former style will need to adapt to the military's rigid interpretation of style and is not open to civilian styles. I like to think of myself as having style as I experience life as a high school athlete, musician, drummer, Eagle Scout, Boy State representative, a religious pioneer, church missionary, student of higher learning, romantic, husband, father, college graduate, breadwinner, entrepreneur, home builder, failure, direct marketing, achiever, landlord, realtor for 54 years and counting, public speaker, franchisee, builder developer, failure, church activist, prison minister, grandfather, temple sealer, stake patriarch, married for 57 years, writer, author, and podcaster. As you follow the various steps of life I have encountered as written above, you will see steps. And then you will also see landing platforms, even steps that descended. But all steps and platforms combine to form my style. Back then, I didn't see myself as a winner after my first failure. I didn't see my losses as an opportunity for growth and to develop hidden talents and spiritual gifts, as discussed in chapter 5 of this book. Nonetheless, each step, each platform contributed to developing my style. I invite you to take a few moments before moving into chapter 4, which is choice defines character, and create your own steps of life timeline, knowing that if you are reading this book, you are still creating yours, and it is still within your power to change, to develop the type of style you want to be known for, no matter your age. You can't help getting older, but you don't have to get old. That's George Burns' quote. According to Ranker.com and stage and screen actor George Burns, you can still accomplish incredible things after you turn 50. Gladys Burrell earned the Guinness Book of World Records record as the oldest female to complete a marathon. At age 92, she finished the race, which took place in Honolulu in 9 hours, 53 minutes, and 16 seconds. In 1987, a former lumberjack who had been climbing Mount Fuji every year since he was 89 years of age became the first centenarian to climb Japan's tallest mountain. He attributed his accomplishment to eating raw eggs and all the encouragement he received from his supporter. In 2013, on her fifth attempt, and at age 64, Diana Nyad became the first person confirmed to swim from Cuba to Florida without the aid of a shark tank. The journey was 110 miles long and took her 53 hours straight. Grandma Moses, the spry, indomitable, genuine American primitive who became one of the country's most famous artists, turned out her first painting at the age of 76. She took up painting because arthritis had crippled her hands so she could no longer embroider. Later, her art was hanging in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Oh, Colonel Sanders. He was 65 years old when he received his first Social Security check. It was then he decided that he needed to change his life. And with his chicken recipe, he took action and traveled the nation until someone took a chance on him and Kentucky Fried Chicken was born. Um, and on and on. There's another guy keeping a list of words as a young man, but didn't publish his first thesaurus until he was 73. Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa in 1993. He was the first non-white head of state in South Africa's history. He was also the oldest head of state, taking office at the age of 75. Even if your birth years might indicate that you are over the hill and unable to contribute successfully to society, you can still accomplish incredible things. Folks, you've got style, and you still have time to add to your style. So let's do this. Let's choose to wake up tomorrow morning with a fresh attitude that says, I got style. Choose to make a difference. Choose to continue becoming. Choose to look at trial as your ally, your trainer, your coach, your link to having an intimate relationship with your God, a key to unlocking the greatness within you. So let's hear it. I got style. Thank you so much for listening to my book reading and commentary of Winning Through Trial podcast. If you feel that you're finding value in my experiences with trial, I would love you to subscribe to my channel because we're just getting started. Each new book I write will be featured on this channel as a free audio, as well as videos of my speaking engagements, and portions of new books will be highlighted on this channel before they are published, so you get first notice of what is coming up next in the writing life of Charles P. Malone. And please share both books of trial with anyone struggling with trial and opposition right now, especially book one, The Sweetness of Trial, found on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search for the book title and you can share the free audio with your friends and family when you know they're going through some struggles. I promise it will help. And of course, if you would like a paperback copy of any of my books, you can find my author page on Amazon.com/books, and then just search in the book section under Charles P. Malone. Now stay tuned for episode 7 coming up next, containing the first half of chapter 4 of Winning Through Trial, titled Choice Defines Character. And this will be pages 174 to 204, where you will learn winning way number 5, opportunity. Look for it. Oh, we're going to have fun with that one, folks. Until then, may you keep climbing these mountains, because without challenge there is no change, no win without trial. And as we learned in chapter 3, you can fake it until you make it, 'cause you can choose to be happy. My friends, until next time, choose to win through trial.